Hello and welcome to the Unwanted Opinion podcast, the show in which me and my friends give our unwanted opinions on all thing film and sometimes TV, which we're doing today. My name is Lewis, and I'm joined today with Kyle.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. How you doing?
I'm a bit stressed. We had minor technical issues
Oh,
before the show, and I was running around trying to get it sorted. Also wondering when Gonfalo will be back. Because I just
yeah, he
slowly
is.
forget.
He has disappeared off the face there. Don't worry, all the Gonzalo hardcore fans. I know there's a lot of you out there who make weird fan art and whatever, but he is. He will be
It's
back
just me.
at some point soon. It's just
Yeah,
Kyle with
yeah, it's
different
just me.
accounts, just
No,
doing different weird illustrations of
ah, no.
man.
I was just like, I didn't even. I was like, I don't even know if he's back yet. He could have been free for today, and we just. But there's not a chance he's watched this, so it's
There's
fine.
not a chance. There's not a chance. Yes. On today's episode, we are turning our attention towards TV because
Yep.
House of the Dragon season 2 has finished this week. Actually, today here in the UK, yesterday in the States. So we're going to be doing a full spoiler-filled review of House of the Dragon season 2. Plus, me and Kyle have finally caught up on the latest series 6, part 1 of Netflix's Cobra Kai. So we'll
Oh
also have a
yes.
spoiler-filled review for that after House of the Dragon. So yes, you have been
Yep.
warned if you have not seen all the episodes of season 2, then or you watched any of season 2 for that matter, because you might be like me and binge it all in like 3 days. Then please step away now because we're gonna go jump right into this. So yeah, House of the Dragon season 2 picks up pretty much exactly where season 1 left off.
Yep.
There is now disputes between, of course, Rhaenyra, who believes she's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, and Alicent Hightower's family, who and her children. Is it Aemond and
So
Aegon
Aegon, who is
Targaryen?
the king,
Aegon's who is the king, who believe they're the
Aemond
rightful heirs to
and
the throne.
Helena.
Yes, and so series 1 ended with Rhaenyra's child getting killed by Aemond
Yeah,
Targaryen in the skies. Yes.
Lucius.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can't remember. It's like Lucas or something. I don't think that's the exact way to
Yeah.
pronounce it.
Uh-huh.
But yes, no, because she sent him off. She sent both her kids off. She sent Jaehaerys and Lucius off to go and rally support for Team
Her
Blacks, which is
cause.
Rhaenyra
Yeah.
and her team. And then
Hmm.
obviously he met Aemond. That if you don't remember, Lucius was the one that took his eye halfway through
Way
season
back when they were
one.
children. Yes.
So
Yes.
there was
Uh-huh.
a bit of issues, and he died. And yes, so
Hmm.
that's really kind of when we
Bit of
pick
an
up
issue. It's such a
with
polite way to
season
say
one. Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Yeah. And with season 1 ending, of course, that means the two families pretty much are on the verge of war at the beginning of this season. And then by the end of episode 1, in which Damon gets two of the worst assassins ever.
Um, uh, Cheese and blood and cheese, wine and cheese, or something like that.
Wine and cheese, yeah, to kill. I can't even remember the name of this kid, but one of Alicent's grandchildren's and Helena's daughter, no son, sorry. Even though that, of course, their plan was to try and kill Aemond, but then these assassins are useless and end up killing an innocent child, and
Blood and
subsequently
cheese.
the two blood and cheese, the two families finally go to war. So, Kyle, what are your overall thoughts of season 2 of House of the
Well,
Dragon?
so this is interesting
Mhm.
because we're talking about this now. For
Mhm.
everybody who doesn't really know much about the background of this show, it is
Mhm.
based off a selection of chapters from J.R.
Yeah.
Martin's of Blood and Fire, which is the book about the history of the Targaryen dynasty, going all the way back to Aegon the Conqueror and all the way up to Daenerys, his father, the Mad King.
Mhm.
So I read specifically this the Dancing of the Dragons, which is these few chapters. So I kind of know the story. I know where the bits are going, but obviously it's read more like a history textbook than an actual
Yes.
story. So I still
Mhm.
was like, right, okay, I have plot. I have like very kind of clear ideas of when certain things may happen, but I don't know what's going to
Mhm.
be the filling and the kind of
All
characters
and all the various side characters that aren't really
and all the
mentioned in the
various side
history texts
characters.
where they're gonna go. Yeah.
So I thought this season would go a bit further than it did.
Mm.
I feel that maybe they kind of felt right season one was a lot more popular than we thought, so maybe we'll try and pull
Mhm.
on it a wee bit.
Yeah.
I do feel that that could be a double-edged sword in their eyes,
Mhm.
where you're maybe stretching some stuff out, maybe kind of changing characters around, and inserting conversations or scenes that
Hmm.
didn't happen, especially for um fan service. We're doing wait. This is spoilers, isn't it? Yeah, we're
This
doing
is all
spoilers for
spoilers.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
So
all spoilers.
one of the big things that I see a lot of people being kind of iffy about is
Uh-huh.
Rhaenyra and Alicent never talk really after the whole war kicks off,
Okay.
and
What in the
we get
text you mean?
in the text.
Right.
In the text, it's very different because Alicent is
Mhm.
about 10 years older than Rhaenyra, 9 or 10 years older. So it
Mm.
is a very much more of like a stepmothery sort of vibe than
Mm. Okay.
sistery.
Yeah.
And there was
Which is
two
definitely what they've gone
scenes.
for here.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
two scenes in this season where either Rhaenyra goes to Alicent or Alicent comes to Rhaenyra. And don't get me wrong, I
Mhm.
love it because I just think Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook are just fantastic, and I just love it when they interact. But it is
Mhm.
kind of a lot of people I've seen online going, yeah, this is a bit
Mhm.
fan servicey because it's like, oh, we know you love these characters interacting, so we're going
Mhm.
to add these scenes in.
I don't really necessarily think that's an
I'm,
issue
I'm,
though, because
I'm
it
not
isn't.
saying
It
it's an
isn't.
issue. I'm just
Uh,
saying like
uh
this is more. I'm saying this is where I'm like I can't longer trust the source material of where we're going.
Oh right, you think they're
That's
going to change
that's
stuff
more
up, right?
what I'm
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
suggesting. Sorry, give me a second. My
Mhm.
cat wants out my room.
Well, I'll have to wait to anticipation what Kylo's saying because of
Sorry, yeah,
his
I do
cat.
apologize. So as I was saying, no, it's more that I'm like, right, okay, I don't know where we're going with this more
Mhm.
than anything. So I'm kind of like, right, okay, I'm kind of settling into it as more of its own
Mhm.
identity
Yeah.
rather than
Well,
it's just
surely
a
look,
book.
because this is good because I don't
Mm.
know anything that happens in the text, and you've read it. But surely there's major events that have happened in this that are
Well,
mentioned
obviously
in that
the
in the
death
one of those
of
chapters.
the um heir, the Helena and Aegon's child, is obviously in the
Yes.
text, and there's some
Mhm.
other stuff that I can't because it's very jumpy the text because it's really much like highlighting stuff. Craigon
Yeah.
Stark was obviously in the text,
Yeah.
and that was great. Even though if it was for like 2 minutes at the start of the season and he was
Mhm.
gone,
Yeah.
he doesn't show up in the rest of the season.
Well,
I was
surely
very much
Rhaenys' death as well,
Rhaenys'
and
death
the
is in
whole
there as well.
battle, the Rook's
Um,
Rest.
there as well, and
Mhm.
like that's what I was saying with you, where you were like, "Oh, Aegon's dead." You thought Aegon had died, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Ah, he's not." Is and I was like, because this is what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how much I can trust anymore. Because at the end of the season, when you have, right, let's get the character up here, because this is where names are gonna start failing me.
See
Which
if anyone
daughter
could
is it?
watch the show and keep track of all the names and who's who. That is that you're like you have a
Um,
very high IQ in my opinion
Rhaena.
because I think it's so hard.
Rhaena Targaryen, who is one of the two daughters of Daemon
Yes.
and Princess Rhaenyra. Oh my god, they all sound so fucking similar. The one who was sent away with the two brothers to
Yes.
guide her, and at the end of the season, she's going on to take Sheep Snatcher, the kind of
Yeah,
wild
because I
dragon.
was that is just a dragon who no one's ever claimed
It,
that he's just a
they were
wild.
hatched and they were
Uh-huh.
wild. So there's a selection of wild dragons out there
Uh-huh.
that do kind of going on. But she never tames that dragon in the book. It's this character called Nettles, who they seem to have just not bothered to introduce
Okay,
because
they're
they're
not doing
like,
that. Okay.
you know, it made sense, especially in the earlier part of the season where you're like, oh, we're getting introduced to a lot of these kind of random folk people, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I was like,
where are we,
what's go
where are
yeah, for me,
where are we going with this?
I mean, they have a whole episode called Small Folk, which kind of
Yeah,
focuses on kind of each of those characters. And at the beginning, especially the Hugh character and his like struggles is like trying to get food for his like ill
with
daughter and his
his
wife.
yes,
And I thought, okay, so this is just to sort of contextualize the state of the kingdom right now, which is effective in doing that. But then, of course, down the line, you find out that
yeah,
he's a Targaryen bastard, and same with the Ulf guy in the tavern, and the guy the docks. His
Adam,
name's is it Hull Adam Hull? Yeah.
Adam of
So
Hall.
Yeah. So
who's a
eventually all those
bastard
guys come to play,
himself.
which
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I was like, whoa, okay, this is this. So I was like, that I didn't really see that coming at all, where this was going. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy claimed he was a Targaryen bastard. I originally thought he was just taking the piss.
I thought
Uh,
it was because it was in that setup, and he's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, my
I thought it was
nephew
all just a
Aegon, I'm so,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. And after that, it was all
cheerful.
just all kind of that, and the Hugh thing, and then they kept going back to the Hugh character, and for
Yeah,
me, I was like, I'm sorry, man, I kind of don't really care about you, and then of course it comes into play that he actually has the ability
it was definitely
to dragon
interesting
ride. Uh huh.
because he, when you first introduce him, he is in Aegon's small court,
Hmm.
and he's like, can you get? And he's like, yeah, the king was going to give us food. So I kind of thought, is
Yeah,
this going to be more about showing us the turning of the tides,
yeah.
especially when you get that really great scene, or I really loved it when
Hmm.
Rhaenyra sends shipments
All the
into
food on
King's
supplies.
Landing
Yeah.
with the food,
Hmm.
and I was like, this is what they're doing, and I was like, because I knew there was other dragon riders, and I kind of forgot who they were because I read it.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
read it at the end of season one, which was 2 years ago, and I genuinely forgotten.
Hmm.
I just know the main points. I remember who comes up in Torrent. I would also like to point out something as a disclaimer for anybody
Okay.
who wants to rewatch Game of Thrones. They do spoil
Yeah.
it. I just want to make that known.
this.
There is a
Okay.
scene.
Yeah.
There is a scene where Joffrey
Joffrey.
is exploring the crypts and basically just says the ending of House of the Dragon. Now, once again, that is the ending that's in the book. I don't know if it's going to be different because history obviously can be written differently, and
Yeah,
uh,
well, I mean, I feel like they kind of have to stick to that because obviously the
mm,
show and the book universe are like two different universes because
yeah,
obviously Game
obviously.
of Thrones is ended as a show and will hopefully have a different ending from the books that will never come out. But we know they can kind of change things, they change things up there. So I feel like it'll stick to the show's history though,
Yeah.
because if Joffrey has said that, they can't really do that unless they have like a whole this is what the public think ending, and then there's actually like a
Mm.
secret truth ending sort of thing. They
Do
might
you
do
know
some of
what's, do
that,
you know what I
but
like quite funny,
uh,
especially
mhm.
with relation to the Game of Thrones? There's obviously a lot of kind of like prophecies and visions in this series, and obviously they talk a
Yeah,
lot about
we got back to
this.
that. Yeah, yeah.
They talk about, Rhaenyra tells her child, Jace, about that song of Ice and Fire. And I just
Hmm.
love it whenever that happens. You go on Twitter and it's people just saying, "Stop reminding us about the terrible ending of Game of Thrones." Like,
Yeah.
it'd been great if it was a fantastic ending. You're like, "This is
Mhm.
the future." Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
But
mean,
also, it's funny
overall,
because then they
yeah,
just have shots from like season one of Game of Thrones with like
I think that was
Daenerys and her
reshot
drag.
because it was by
It looks a
herself
bit
or it was
different.
edited
Yeah.
out. I feel
Uh huh.
that Emilia Clarke couldn't schedule anything because I feel that was
Well,
going to be a cameo. But
don't
she's
they
also that was
have
10
that
years
shot
ago.
in the end of season one? Like they have her coming out the ash with the three dragons. I don't know why they just didn't just reuse
Hmm.
that footage that
Just
they
use
already have.
footage or bring her back,
Yeah,
or I
whatever.
don't know.
Okay, but
But
I want to
yeah,
bring up. So I'll get more into like kind of each kind of plot point in a minute. But
yeah,
overall, I was saying this to you, Kyle. It's kind of a weird thing, right? Because see, with the Game of Thrones series, they did a really good job, especially when the Robert Stark was at war with the Lannisters, sorry, and then they
struggle
marry
there.
the Tyrells, and basically when Joffrey's reign sort of thing, and before the Red Wedding, whatever else.
Yeah,
They do a really good job of it being like a proper warfare, and there's losses on each side. And some episodes you think, oh, Robert's side is going to come out on top, and the other episodes you think the
yeah,
Lannisters are going to come out on top on it all. And there's a really good back and forth. This show, from my point of view, from watching, I was kind of like towards the end of it. I was like, Aemond and Aegon's side are kind of fucked here. Like,
yeah.
it just seems like, sorry, Rhaenyra has the Starks, all of the Riverlands now. She's got like six dragons.
Yeah,
She's got the Valyrian shipmasters. I'm like, I don't really know what they've got. What Aemond and Aegon have got. What the Lannisters and the Hightowers really, but
and they've
I don't
got
know.
the pirates from
They,
Essos they're bringing
we got the
over. That's the
pirates from
last
Mythos now,
that
but
scene.
dragons
Yeah,
wise, I was like, you
it's
don't really
it is
have
very
much.
much. It's like the logic is, well, my dragon's bigger, so thus I
Yeah.
win, and that's very much
Well, it
aiming.
was scared to fight three other dragons
Mhm.
though, and now she has like
But
six. So
I want to kind of talk about
mhm.
Allison for a moment
Okay.
because I love her character arc ish in this where she kind of goes
Yeah.
from Aegon takes over and she's still on the small council, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's like she starts realizing that there's a great part where it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this because we don't want a woman on the throne. And then they
Mm-hmm.
eventually chuck her off the small council and go like, here, no offense, but the logic applies to you too. Like you can't be,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't be part of the strategic thing when we're still fighting
Mm-hmm.
for the same cause.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
watching Aegon get rid of Otto Hightower as his hand of the king,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
banishing him back off to um wherever they're from, Hightower. I guess I can't remember the place
Well,
is
see,
called.
right, see with Otto, right, I thought he was just told to go home, but in the
I think he's
last,
in
did you see a
jail.
shot? Yeah, it looked like he was in some sort of prison
Ah, maybe he
cell
got a
thing,
bit
and I was like,
rowdy when he was maybe he's just
I was
drinking and
like,
then got a wee
I thought
bar
he was just
fight.
told to leave. I don't really
I can't
know what's kind of going on
I
there.
can't remember. But then bringing
Hmm.
on Christian Cole to be his hand, I'm like, that's fantastic. 'Cause that's just ending in
Oh,
misery.
right, right. So you mentioned this thing about because this is kind of to me what this whole series has kind of been about is that these people who have these grand plans or in these high positions of power all start to like they become to realize
Yeah.
how fragile all their positions are. Allison especially, Otto gets kicked out. Even Damon and Rhaenyra have those fears because obviously Damon's art plot line is kind of weird in this one. He basically spends
I
the whole
it's the
episodes
Luigi
just getting
Mansion.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
Luigi's
the
mansion.
Luigi's Mansion. It's
He's
so
just
funny
being
because you
haunted for
mentioned
an
Luigi's
entire
Mansion the
season.
other day, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're gonna start," and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna like properly binge season 2," and I was like, "Such a
Yeah.
weird coincidence," because the entire time I'm like, I've been watching it each week, and I've
Yeah.
seen the memes, and it's like people
Hmm.
replacing Luigi with Damon, and it's like,
Hmm.
what's gonna happen this
But
week?
I think that was kind of the thing of how untenable everyone's position is, and that's kind of the idea I kind of got behind the whole scene is that everyone's kind of afraid because they're all at any moment could lose everything, and
Oh,
that's why I think Damon at the end,
Damon's
Damon's got an
great.
interesting arc because you through the whole, he is one of my favorite kind of plot lines throughout the whole thing, even though he's just kind of in one location. I think everyone's kind of in one location throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
Uh, he is just because obviously he's on he kind of goes off in a rage and you can kind of suspect he's going to betray and do his own thing, but then finally by the end of it comes around and understands what's best because I actually kind of thought by the end he would just create his own claim for the throne and start his
Yeah,
own
and like
army
I
up
said, this
in
is
the
another bit
Riverlands.
where I was kind of
Uh-huh.
going, this doesn't happen. Are we verging from
Yeah.
it? Are we?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I did love it because I thought it. Damon's part brought a lot of humor to me. I have to admit,
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
his scenes are always gonna be the funniest. Where the moments where Sir Lawrence Strong, who the
Hmm.
person that's the
Yeah.
head, constantly like belittles him about him being the king consort.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
he's like
Yes.
the grace, and also the whole kind of plotting with the Tully boy and how his grandfather mysteriously
Hmm.
died, and then Damon's like looking over that weird witch woman and is like, yeah, I kind of know what's happened there.
Yeah.
And then the Tully boy who Damon thought, right, I'm just gonna use you and you're gonna just break to my
Mhm.
will, kind of
Yeah.
showing Damon up and going,
Yeah.
I'm going to get people on your side by saying how much we hate you. And you're just
Yeah.
going to have to suck it up. And then that's going
Yeah.
to get on its
Yeah.
side. And I seen
Hmm.
that David kind of like cracking and going like, oh, this is it. But like I say, like the dreams are really weird because
Yes.
it's a great way to bring back cameos from people. Obviously,
Yeah. From.
Paddy Constantine and
Mhm.
Millie Hancock, Millie. I can't remember her name. Young
Mhm.
Rhaenyra from season one.
Yes.
Great to bring them back, and it does kind of really, you really think you're like a therapist session for Damon. Especially there's a scene where he's
Mhm.
making love to somebody, and it's his mother,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
you have some issues
Yeah.
here, boy. We'll get through those in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of going on to the biggest criticism I've seen of the show,
Okay.
and maybe
Mhm.
especially of the final. There was the best tweet I saw where somebody posted saying, "Did I just watch a 77-minute trailer for season 3?" Kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of setting up of what the bigger things to come is what the
It
last
is a
episode feels
lot of
like. Yeah.
setup, and they're like, "There's not
Mhm.
much action," and I'm like, "Right, you have to remember, early seasons of Game of Thrones, the first big
Didn't have.
battle didn't come till maybe about halfway between season 2, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. There wasn't
season
really any
3 is
big
when it
battles in
really
season
picked
one.
up." the Dance
Hmm.
of Dragons, yeah, I could say I'm a mildly maybe a bit upset that the ending was a bit kind of thing, but I'm not as like
Hmm.
against this lack of action like
No, 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 me neither.
scene.
I don't think that's an
I
issue. I, for me, the issues. Well, actually, I want to get into. I want to talk about the sort of the kind of the very because kind of the big reveal really for the ending is that Allison is willing to kill her son
Yeah,
in
which is
order
a
to bring
big
peace,
step.
which is
Uh-huh.
a huge, huge thing. And it's like, oh my God, like, because obviously she's shown to really love her children and, well, as stubbornly really wanted Aegon to remain king up until this point. And I'm like, wow, okay. But it leads me, well, obviously we know Aegon is now with Lara, is now, went and disappeared with Lara Strong.
Yeah,
I
after
don't know,
his
obviously, if
little
you after
uh
his accident on the
Anakin
dragon.
Anakin's kind of
Is that
style
you said he
ways.
got Anakin Skywalker?
He got Anakin
Yeah.
Skywalkered.
Yeah. Another interesting relationship which I like towards the latter portion of the series. But yeah, that is like wow. Because now I actually think it kind of makes her more unpredictable now. If she's
Mhm.
willing to betray her son and kill her son for the sake of the peace of the realm, because she just wants to live happily with her daughter, basically.
Yeah.
Um, I'm like, where? Well, when she gets back to King's Landing and he's gone in the Red Keep, then I don't really know.
Yeah,
Allison is one
he's
she's a great character, one I like to hate, but her whole arc's been very interesting. It's like I do actually towards the latter portion. I should in the first portion of the first half of the series, I really hated her and Christian Cole. I was saying to
yeah,
Mika, I
I
was like,
know.
oh my god, I just want them to
Everybody
die.
hated that.
I hate them so much. Then by the end of them, both characters, I'll get to Christian Cole in a minute. Both characters, I actually felt really sympathetic towards her because everything is slipped away from Allison, and now she's just feels
Yeah,
she just wants to be safe.
Allison's
Hmm.
character really takes a change. I think it's episode 3 where Rhaenyra comes to speak to her,
Yeah,
and she talks to me. Yeah, he told me about this story, and Rhaenyra goes, "Yeah, that's Aegon the Conqueror." And there's that kind of look
yeah,
in Allison's face that's like, "Oh,
yeah,
I've really fucked up here." And
yeah,
then
yeah,
she
yeah,
gets
yeah.
kicked out of the small council. Aemon just undermines her at every moment, and she realizes
Hmm.
that as much as she kind of has this kind of, I say, she's got a lover with Christian Cole, but then Christian Cole spends a lot of his
Yeah.
time strategizing with Aemond and their own like tiny
Hmm.
small council.
Hmm.
And then she
Hmm.
does that like little day trip out where she doesn't really do much, but she goes camping and she just floats in the water
Yeah.
and she's really like,
Hmm.
what has happened here?
Hmm. Hmm. I think
You
that's a good.
know,
I think that because, like I was saying with those characters before, Kristen Cole, Allison, Damon are all characters, and Aegon because he's before he gets severely injured. They're all kind of in this like rush and this
yeah.
bloodlust and like they're so confident in their abilities and that oh my I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this, and then the Rook's Rest battle happens and sort of everything
Hmm.
changes from everyone's
Yeah.
perspectives except Aemond. Aemond is still just a bastard who wants to just go out and kill everyone, but Christian Cole, I detested him, right?
Hmm.
Really hated him, but by the end he has that last conversation, his last scene in the whole series
With
with
Alicent's brother.
yeah, it was Gawain Hightower, I think.
Gwen or
Who
Gwen, yeah.
I really, really wanted more Gawain. I really liked Gawain as a character. I
He
think he's
was,
really sound. I think he's really
yeah.
cool. I really liked him. And he has that conversation in the wood, and obviously he's got this sword. He's like, you've been sleeping with my sister, and what does an oath mean to you? And
Yeah.
ever since Rook's Rest, Christian Cole, because he is completely out of his depth when he was Hand of the King. He's this guy who believes, oh, my strategy is going to be the best. I'm so smart, I can do anything. I'm sleeping with the queen mother, I should say, and he's doing all this, haha. He thinks he's the big boy, and then Rook's Rest happens, and then he is. The latter portion of the season is just him having an existential crisis and
Yeah.
realizing how small he really is. And watching those dragons, he's like, everything is pointless, and I
He was like,
can't do anything, and I am this small,
yeah.
small man. And I'm like, I'm so happy you realized that, man. I'm so
Um,
happy you realized how small you are.
so especially in the dragon front, right? What really
Hmm.
intrigues me about this season
Hmm.
is the kind of relationship with the dragons because when
Mm.
Rhaenyra dies on her
Hmm.
dragon, do you still have the list of the dragons? Do you think you'll be able to figure it? Because that's the one dragon name that I've
I
just
do have a
completely
list.
forgotten.
Hold on. Who? Sorry.
Rhaenyra, the one who fell on her dragon at Rook's Rest. Rhaenyra
Uh,
Targaryen.
so So
Not son.
Rhaenyra, so that's not Rhaenyra. Oh, her. That's Melise.
Melise.
Is
Thank you.
Ren is
So
was Rhaenyra's
Renee
dragon.
runs. Yeah.
Rhaenyra.
Melise.
Yeah.
Melissa's head is brought through King's Landing on like a big
Mm-hmm.
stone,
Mm-hmm.
and they all realize that that was a mistake because in
Yeah.
the eyes of the common folk, dragons are
Mhm.
gods, and that's the
Yeah.
relationship between the. And it's like, wait, that's a great line from somebody. What happens if you make a god bleed?
Mm.
Batman in this is around 2016. But that's what I'm saying. That's what happens here, where it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh wait, these dragons aren't like invincible. They can die, and
Yeah.
it's like this whole kind of doubting. And then later on, when Rhaenyra has to go get more dragon riders,
Mm-hmm.
Jace, who has a lot of sulking this season because, and I get his sulking, right? I get it because
Mm-hmm.
he is very self conscious about his
Yeah.
heritage, the fact that
Yes.
he is not actually a
Mhm.
Valarian and he is a strong,
No. Yeah.
meaning the when kind of being introduced to a lot of bastards and just they can just ride dragons. He was upset 'cause he felt that was the last bit that kept him as like a royal Targaryen,
Mm-hmm.
was the fact that
Yeah.
it was his birthright, and
Yeah.
his his wife, or his betrothed, who was the
Mm-hmm.
other Targaryen Daemon's daughter, Lady
Yes.
something Targaryen, is like, get over it. Like, this is
Yeah.
like, you are the heir. You are
Yeah.
Rhaenyra's heir to the throne. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to calm down, son. And I
Mm-hmm.
know, like, when I was watching my girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, he's been so annoying." I'm like, "Yeah, but I kind of get it, because I
No,
kind
that
of
is
get
the,
the."
I was completely on his side throughout the whole thing. Like
Mm,
it is a reminder of him being all those bastards in front of him
yeah,
is a reminder that he is a bastard himself. It's one that it's the entire, like you were saying, the specialness of it, the sort of the sort of like what I'm trying to say here, the sort of like you're destined to be a dragon
uh
rider
huh,
sort of thing. It's like that makes you special, that you're an heir and you can do these things, and then that is sort of taken away from him, and it is quite sad. And it kind of makes him feel less special, and also it makes him question in himself. It's like, well, I'm as much of a bastard as these guys were to their whoever Targaryens as well.
exactly,
So it's
and
like I'm not that much more special than them.
mm, and she talks
Which
about
is
her,
which is yeah.
his betrothed's like, you're not the first noble bastard birth, and if you know from
Hmm.
Game of Thrones, half the nobles there are just
No, I know.
bastards from one point of another. But I
Mhm,
love that kind of idea of him kind of having this kind of crisis of identity, um,
mhm.
where it's something like those things like don't get they don't get as much character flesh out in the books, I feel. So I think I kind of
Yeah,
like it, actually spending more time with these characters and being like, oh
yeah.
right, this is what you're doing.
Mhm.
And yeah, one of the highlights for me was the dragon ceremony where they're like, Rhaenyra kind of goes, "This is such and such. He is like a big dragon, and we're gonna try one at a time." And
Yeah.
I'm like, and then it just turns into complete and utter chaos, and it's just a
Yeah.
massacre of all
Yeah,
these bastards. And I'm like,
yeah.
oh no, I feel really bad. And then I was like,
I know.
I found that scene quite funny because I was like, how did you think this was gonna go? Like, this is such a, I mean,
Yeah,
those the
yeah.
dragon tamers were so right in their prediction,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
to uh kind of take over. But I mean, like the little bits in the show, I loved. I loved the fact that when not Daenerys, sorry, Rhaenyra hands off 4 dragon eggs to her niece, or
Mm,
stepdaughter, um, to go to take her children to the Vale, that it's
yep,
confirmed that, and then obviously after the Vale, 3 of them they go over to Essos to get more
mhm,
safety. It is confirmed that
yeah.
those are the 3 dragon eggs that Daenerys gets in the first
Those are
episode. I was
Daenerys's
like,
eggs, yeah.
that's a cool wee thing. That's cool. Like,
Mhm, mhm,
it was so not like in your face. They had to like go and
mhm.
actually confirm it afterwards, which I kind of like those
Yeah,
Easter eggs because it's like
mhm.
we're not shoving
Literal
it in your
Easter eggs.
face. Oh, well done. And yeah, and yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not a
Mhm,
huge like complainer. Like, oh, there wasn't as much action. I'm like, yeah, I agree.
yeah. Well,
It's
don't, I'm sure the next 2 seasons will
This is
definitely
this is
deliver
my
on
thing
that
that I'm
front.
kind of worried about now,
Mhm,
because I had an idea where things were going, and I'm now kind of worried
mhm,
that now what I think season 3 will end with, they might do is like the
mhm,
season 4 beginning, because it's clearly what they're doing, and how it's
mhm.
like this is gonna be the big thing, but we're gonna do it in the first episode of season 3.
Well, let's. I'm still taking their word for it that this is going to be 4 seasons long. I don't think imagine they're going to try and
I don't see them pushing it more than 4 seasons.
yeah.
Especially how I say stretching out. I'm not saying stretching out, filling, because they're not stretching.
Hmm.
They're adding stuff to
Hmm.
it. You know,
Yeah. I mean, this series had less episodes than last series. This is
yeah,
2 episodes
6,
less. This
8. Sorry,
series.
8.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean,
So
I'm
they
like,
understand
you
stretch
know,
out too
could
much.
you have done 9 or 10 and added that wee battle in? Sure, and maybe people would have
Yeah.
been a wee bit more happy with the ending,
The
but
bloodlust out there, man. Everyone's
it
serious.
is a
So
it is a bloodlust. I mean, I finished it and I
mhm.
was like, yeah, cool. I was like, that's good. I'm
Yeah.
solid. Like, I was
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
looking at it. I was like, this only has 5 minutes, so we're clearly not doing this fight, and it is the
Yeah.
big teaser for season 3. I was like,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I
That's
just
fine.
really, really hope we don't have to wait 2 years for series three.
I
Like,
think we are, man.
surely.
I think we are
No,
because
because but
HBO put a 5 second teaser for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is Duncan the
mhm,
Tall and Egg, which is another
mhm,
Aegon Targaryen in the future.
mhm.
And I believe that's a 2025 release, and I believe it's gonna be a 2026 release for House of the Dragon.
But why? Why it doesn't take that? It does not take that long. Because Game of Thrones, in its heyday, there was a show. It was a season every single year up until just the last series where they took 2 years. It was consistently, and those
It
are
was
big. Those are
consistent.
bigger. It feels like those are bigger shows
Oh, I mean,
than
no, on a
this.
production standpoint, they definitely were bigger because they had a lot more stories that were in multiple countries, and
Yeah.
you had directors running around the place trying to get
Hmm.
to locations in
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a bit upset if it does take another 2 years because I really feel that they must have seen that the hype that it has been in the last
Hmm.
year and a half since
Hmm.
the airing of season 1 2 years ago now. Actually, I
Hmm.
thought they would have just been like, right, let's rush this a wee bit. I thought they were
Yeah.
going to rush
Let's
season
let's let's
2
do it.
because I thought,
Yeah.
look at bloody Amazon with Fallout. They're like, oh, everybody likes this. Let's make season 2 as quick as we can.
Let's keep
Like,
going. Yeah, keep the
that's what
momentum
you should
going. Like
probably be
the
doing.
Stranger Things momentum has just been completely cut off because that's taken about 1 billion years to try and make a
And
the
also,
final
I'm pretty
series.
sure nobody in Stranger Things wants to be doing Stranger Things anymore because I think they're
Yeah,
all
I know
fed up with
everyone
it.
is like, please,
And it's
please
a
let this
shame
end.
because
Yeah,
I'm like to them here. Some of you, this is probably the best job that you'll do in terms of
yeah,
probably quality and quantity of the
yeah,
work. But I mean,
yes.
yeah, I've not got much else to say. I really enjoyed the story. I really liked what they did with the characters, especially the characters that seemed unlikable. You know,
Yes, they
uh,
do come around towards the end of the series, I think.
I love how they're very discreetly, they very kind of very Helena showing how powerful of a daydreamer she is. Like
Hmm.
she is
Hmm. Yeah.
mental powerful, and they don't really kind of throw it into your. They kind of give you hints early on because she does very much predict the death of her son and everything like
Hmm.
that, and and it's just kind of like
Hmm.
she's just there mental, and
Uh-huh.
Aemon's just kind of descent into like taking the power for himself. I love that. Him
Yeah.
almost killing
I
Aegon, but getting
before we
caught.
sort of move on,
Mhm.
I also find the relationship between Lara Strong and Aegon quite. I mean, obviously, it's very much because relates to Aegon completely in his physical condition anyway, and how he will be treated
Yeah.
now that he's been burned. And there's that whole really the scene where Laris cries actually,
Mhm.
describing about how people will see him and treat him, and then sort of kind of like a surrogate guardian form. Weirdly enough, I was like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" Towards the end of the series, and then him actually Laris taking Aegon out of the city and trying to
Mhm.
save him, and
I
who
think
knows
because
where that's gonna go.
Lawrence originally had his loyalties to Alicent, and then during
Yeah,
that meeting in the small council where he also then jumped to the bandwagon of chucking her out, I think
yeah,
he was very much like, right, I need somebody else to be on my side or be on the side of them so I
hmm,
can kind of escape, but not really escape. It's
yeah,
kind of hard
yeah,
where it's
hmm,
describing that. But yeah, I mean,
hmm,
overall, I mean, like if we're going to give him a score, I mean,
yeah. Let's give scores.
I'm still gonna give it, like, I think it's a solid 8. Like, I know people are like, "Oh,
Hmm.
and there's no action," but I'm like, here, for
Hmm.
me, the character fleshing out of everybody has been
Yeah,
great. The kind of
hmm,
putting in the step, like characters being, kicked down a level or two, and
Mhm.
being shown like, here, this is a gritty, realistic area. Damon, from going to this arrogant prince the entire time in season one,
Mhm.
having his Luigi Mansion scenes and kind of going, right, maybe I need to take a step back.
Damon's mansion.
It really is Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
Aegon
Yeah.
having the moment, and Rhaenyra kind of accepting other help from elsewhere, and because she was obviously very much like, oh, it's Dragon Riders should be royal blood, and like, oh, maybe we'll try a wee bit of a tinge of
Mhm.
different blood in them. And
Mhm.
as much as like everybody complained about the fan servicey part of Alicent and Rhaenyra, I'm like, I don't care, because whenever those two talk on scene,
Uh-huh.
I think it's brilliant, and I think
Yeah.
the conversations that they have are just amazing, and
Mhm.
it is a shame that they're not in as many scenes as they were in season one,
Yeah.
because that's the highlight. And I just have to stay with 8 out of 10. I think it is overall really solid, and
Mhm.
I do think season three will
Yeah.
be the action season that people wanted
That will
from
be the
House of
the
the
big the
Dragons.
big the big sort of fighty, big explosiony,
Hmm.
smashy, crashy season.
Fair,
I
yeah,
agree. I'm
well,
gonna give it an
well
8 out of 10 as
described there,
well.
Lewis.
I think it's pretty consistent with season one for the most part for me. I think I might just prefer season one a little bit more, but that's maybe because the first series to me was like a really big surprise. I wasn't really expecting it really to
Yeah, it
get
was a big
into it as
surprise
much
for
as I did.
everybody. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like how it's just one big family dispute. Now it's
and
going,
you got obviously
across the country.
Paddy is in season one for more of it, and he's just
Yeah, and Paddy's good. If I were to have
fantastic.
if I were to have any kind of minor complaints, Corlys, Corlys
The sea snake, Lord of
Valyrius,
the
the sea snake.
Driftmark.
I I don't know. I feel like he didn't really have much this series. I know he had his like bastard.
His
Um,
season was very much the kind of
He
bastard.
he was in just like, and I bet him look at the script was like, oh, I'm on the dock set
Yeah,
again and
it's
again.
like
I'm just on the dock
like
set
oh, the
for the
dogs.
whole season. He's like goes to like Dragonstone once and then he's on the
Yeah.
dock again. I'm like, God, give this man something else to
He would
do
have been a
besides
bit
wander onto the
annoyed. He would
dock.
have been a bit
And
annoyed.
yeah, and
Going.
just talk to his bastard child. I'm like, oh my God, give
Yeah.
him something else to do.
I mean,
That was a bit
you
like,
know,
yeah, he
eh,
didn't really have much.
it's
And
not it's not the first
mhm,
time we've ever had a bastard and their parent have an argument in Game of Thrones, and it will never be the last time
yeah.
we have a bastard and an argument in Game of Thrones.
So that was kind of annoying for him,
But
and I don't know.
I liked the
I
end of
think
that, and especially in the last
yeah,
episode where his bastard goes
obviously
like,
yeah,
"Here, it's because you've lost your children that you've come to me now. Don't expect
yeah,
anything different." And I kind of was
yeah,
like, "Shit, that's a good point." He's clearly just gone
yeah.
like, "I've lost my two kids. I still want a
I've lost my
child."
wife.
So I'm
Yeah,
now going to go and decide, because his wife knew, and his wife was actually
yeah,
upset. And there's that scene early
hmm
on in the season where she just kind of like almost caresses his cheek and is like,
hmm
I'm sorry," like almost
hmm
apologizes for the way
yeah,
he was treated. And
yeah,
I like the minor detail that he shaves his head because he has the blonde hair and he can't
yeah.
have it
He doesn't.
showing. That
Yeah,
which
so
I like. I
it's
think that's such a just a
uh,
wee like, because he's like, he chooses it because he could
hmm
have his hair grown and then everybody has
hmm
to accept him. But
yeah,
it's very different to the Targaryens, where their hair is maybe a wee bit more. All the bastards seem to be just more dirty blonde than like the
hmm
Targaryen
yeah,
platinum
yeah, yeah,
blonde.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like Hugh's kind of like just kind of more gray than white
mhm.
sort of thing. Yeah, that's sort of.
Which is great, and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, oh,
I still think, yeah. I mean, the show. I mean, it doesn't have also. They clearly don't shoot on location as much anymore, which is a shame. Like you can tell, there's a lot of green
mm,
screen used for a bunch of this. But overall, I still really thoroughly enjoy House of Dragon. I'm really looking forward to season three. Please don't make it 2 years. Wait,
when we're
don't do that. There's no need.
ancient.
There's no need. There's no need. They announced series three for this before season two aired, and I
Mm,
actually saw a thing where it was like they were talking about why was there a 2 year gap, and they also even mentioned that the actors and writers strike had no effect on the show because it was all shot in the UK. So
yeah,
and all the actors are British, so it's like, and they don't have the same, they're not at the same union as
no,
SAG,
the
so it's like there
unions
wasn't
are
even,
different. Yeah,
yeah, there wasn't even an excuse to make this take so long. So I don't know why they're doing this delay thing. Is it's just
who knows? Who
constantly kind
knows?
of
Yeah,
elongate it more? Ugh, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to something very different in
you may be
tone
wondering,
and
why
style
do we
and
review
performances.
this?
and everything else. Cobra Kai Series 6 Part 1. So this actually dropped maybe 2 weeks ago now, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so this kind of once again picks up exactly where season 5 left off. Johnny and Daniel Russo have decided to join forces after, the Eagle Fang dojo kind of goes up in flames. Kreese has escaped prison, and what's the big bad's name with the ponytail?
Terry Silver is
Terry
in
Silver
prison.
is finally gone to prison after all his mistreatment and all his criminal activity. And yep, at long last, Miyagi Do and Eagle Fan Karate have joined together. They're bringing all their students together to train with two senseis, well, three actually.
Three, yep.
Who's that? What's the guy's name again? The
This
other
is
guy.
this is Karate Kid 2 villain.
Karate Kid 2 villain. Wow.
What is his name again? Is it Cho? Cho? I
Sure.
want to say it's Cho. Chosen. Chosen.
Chosen, thank you.
There we
Yeah,
go.
so the three of them all decide to come together and teach Miyagi-Do in preparation for the Sekai Taikai, which is the biggest karate tournament on
It's
the
the biggest thing
planet.
in the
But
world.
meanwhile, Kreese has gone elsewhere to try and carry on the legacy of Cobra Kai. Right, Kyle, what were your overall thoughts on Cobra Kai Series 6 Part 1?
It's always golden with this show. I don't understand. It's that we say this every time we bring up this show. This show does not deserve to be as good and as funny as it is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it, it's sorry, it's just so funny. Yeah, no, I mean Cobra Kai. I was like, I can't believe it went on for as long as it did. The fact this was
I
a
can't believe it's still going,
YouTube
yeah.
Red, um,
Mm-hmm.
a streaming show, and then Netflix was like, here, people seem to like it. Let's keep going. Yeah, the ridiculousness is just up a level. I always feel, especially
Mm-hmm.
where the Sentai Kentai, whatever it's called, it's like the biggest thing in the world. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
this is it. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything comes down to this moment. I'm like, guys, this is a karate competition. But I say it because every season it's a karate competition, but it's the biggest thing in the world
Yes.
to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, character wise, um, kind of, I mean, probably the bigger. I mean, I would say the character that's facing the most like change in this part of the season
Mm-hmm.
has to be Johnny Lawrence and William Zatker's character, because he is gonna have a baby girl and he's like, I've never had that
Yeah.
before, and then he's like, there's not too much in it, but I think that's really the
Mm-hmm.
only major kind of character sort of development that has happened in these five
Well,
episodes. I mean, and
well,
there's another
forget about
character as
Kenny,
well.
mate. Kenny
No,
and
let's not talk.
Tori
Yeah, like,
towards the
Tori as well. I would
end.
say Tori's
Yeah.
character as well had a lot of um character development, and yeah, and like the kind of bringing together of the three kind of, because it's technically Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and Miyagi Do all kind of together,
Yeah.
and yeah, there's that kind of vibe where some of them aren't getting as long, and it's like, how are we gonna make
No.
friends? And it's the general, this. You don't need to be a PhD doctorate to understand the story
Yeah.
of Cobra Kai. It's not
No,
the most in
you
depth thing in the
absolutely
world,
don't.
but it is funny. And yeah, most of the part of the season was choosing the six leaders,
Mm.
six candidates to take on the world champion out of the sort of like, I'm guessing 20 odd 30 students that they
Yeah,
have, because it
and all
seems
the
to be
other
quite a
extras
few.
or whoever else is
Yeah, I mean, all the
there.
background
Yeah.
kids,
Oh, the background. Oh, yeah, that does see you before.
and
Sorry.
and yeah,
Yes.
and the kind of discovery that Mr. Miyagi may not be as good of a man as he was.
Oh, yeah, that plotline
Um,
kind of doesn't annoy me. Not
no, no,
because of
no.
I give it Mr. Miyagi, more because Daniel LaRusso is
Yeah,
acting like someone's
I,
died.
I do. I love the fact. I was like, I just loved. Well, I mean, I was like, it doesn't shock me because Mr. Miyagi was just going around beating up kids in the first Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm like,
Yeah.
calm down. This is. I mean, like Johnny Lawrence literally kind of goes like, yeah, well, he did beat me up. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
isn't unsurprising. But yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get a lot more uh focus on some of the kind of newer cast members. Like I said, Kenny um is still there, as well as, and her name is gone from me. Is it? Oh, I can't find her
Dev?
name. Was Dev? Is it Dev? Yeah, it is Dev. Who was
Mm-hmm.
the Cobra Kai member that came over, and she kind of gets a bit more of a spotlight, and she's clearly going to be one of the main six.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I mean, like, I was genuinely saying this to you. I was like, I was like, who are the main six going to be? It's like I know who the four are, but who could be the other
I
two? Is it
know.
going to be like
That's
I
it
was
genuinely actually gets you invested of like who are the other two going to be?
who
Like
is it?
who else are we picking for this?
But what did
And
you
it's funny
think
because like
overall?
Cobra Kai, like you say, Kyle, like I remember just I didn't
But
even
I
voluntarily
remember you.
watch Cobra
I remember
Kai.
begging you to watch this.
And I was like, it looks crap. I didn't really care much for the Karate Kid. I'm like, whatever. And then someone put it on one time, and I was like, this is actually kind of funny. And then I kind of ended up just binging it for like I think at the time like two. I think season three was coming out, and so I kind of
Yeah,
binged it
because
all
season three was the
in
first
preparation for
Netflix
that.
one to come out, so they put
Yeah, that was
seasons
it.
one and two
Yeah,
on Netflix, and it was like, go for it.
Netflix, and then that's how I watched it. Yeah, look, is it the most well shot, well written, dramatic? Well, actually, it does get very
It's quite
dramatic.
dramatic, and this
You
season
know,
got dramatic. Yeah,
this season got. I'll get to that. But it doesn't matter because it's just so ridiculous, and I love how ridiculous and stupid it is, and the way how
that's it.
serious they all
Yeah.
take it. It just makes for great TV. It's so funny. It's
Uh,
just a lot of. It's just so fun watching Cobra Kai, and
I don't know how to
yeah,
describe it. It's
it's a proper melodrama. It's like a proper melodrama. And look, that's the thing, because I was like, it's really not like it's like I say, it's not revolutionary TV and stuff. But when we get to the whole setup of this part one is like you're saying, Mr. Miyagi super secret plot line, which makes Danny out to be a little crybaby, which is no surprise. I think everyone listening, Daniel Russo is the most annoying character in the show, hands down.
but it's
I
the
actually,
consistency that we
it's
love.
the consistency of him being the most annoying character in the show. I'm like, he needs to grow up, man. I have no
From
idea how
day
his wife is still
one,
with him.
he was like, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
why?" From day one, Johnny Lawrence was just trying to make a wee bit of a living for himself.
Yeah.
First episode, and Daniel's like, "Oh, why are you doing this? This is bringing
Yeah,
back Cobra
exactly.
Kai," and he's still like
Exactly.
that
Bring it back.
5 seasons later. So I
He's
respect
I
it from
know.
the writers.
Well, whatever. He should be a single father at this point because if I was wife, I would have left him in season
Yeah.
three. But anyway, yeah, it does have that whole thing about picking, like you're picking who is going to be the top six, and that is actually oddly becomes incredibly investing because, like you were saying, you don't know who's going to make it. And look, I'm a big Kenny fan, right? I love
We
Kenny.
love
I,
Kenny.
I
Kenny's
love Kenny,
brilliant.
and I think they did Kenny really dirty in this series. I'm
I'm
sorry.
not. I think it's gonna be
Uh-huh.
payback. I think season part two or part
They are
three.
setting up for some payback because
They
he
are
falsely believes that it was what's
Anthony.
his son's name again? Anthony LaRusso, or Lapusso, as he likes to call
Episode.
him. Lapusso. He thinks he's the one who gave him those laxatives, which kind of threw
Oh
him off for that
my
challenge.
god.
But in fact, it
Also,
was death. So there's obviously going to be a confrontation about that at
right,
some point.
Ryan
Uh-huh.
Reynolds. This is how you make a
Hmm.
poo related joke. Don't do the
Hmm.
brown pants. Say, oh, he got his brown
Yeah,
belt. Class,
he got his
Johnny.
brown
That's how
belt.
you make a poo related
Yeah.
joke. Well done. I genuinely, I
um,
genuinely was like, ha, good one.
yeah.
Uh,
But
and
while
yeah, and
watching this, I was like, look, Dimitri, I like Dimitri as a character, but him getting to the top six really pissed me
that
off.
was a
I'm
cop out.
sorry, he's just not. He's not that great. And
Hmm.
I think as soon as the Sekai Taikai starts, he's gonna
No,
die.
no,
He's
that's
gonna
what I
die.
said to you. I was like, we have I don't know the character's name because I can't even find him on the sheet. Maybe you know the
Mhm.
the actual Cobra Kai character, the Japanese Chinese kid who's like
This
the absolute insane one, the one that
the South
Kreese is
Korean
teaching.
kid.
South Korean
Yeah.
kid. Thank you. Oh, I was completely wrong there. I'm so
Oh well,
sorry.
it's disgraceful, Kyle.
And I'm gonna what is his name? I want to find out his name. But I was saying to you, Liz, is that I want the first episode to be that Jamichi just goes up to him and South Korean
Mm.
kid just destroys him. Like it
Yeah,
not
I hope
even
that happens.
takes like possible death.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna look up his name because I feel to give respect to that. Would you like to talk about Crease's Dagobah cave moment
And
for a
yeah,
second?
Kreese is just I'm so glad Kreese is back as the final villain of the show because we kind of were left with Terry for a while. I was like, oh, is Terry going to be the big bad for all this? But no, Kreese is back. Look, it's just it's so stupid. The entire episode two where one, how I don't know how he got out of the USA.
Quan.
Breaking
Quan.
one, there was his
Brandon H.
name.
Lee. Here we go.
Uh, I have no idea how John Kreese got out of the out of the country, but here we are. He's made it out. He
He
goes
comes
into a
back in
mad
the
vision
country.
cave.
Do you remember
He goes
that?
back in as well. Yeah, he goes
Ah,
back in and then goes to Spain. How is he doing this? The guy's better than goddamn Christian Bale in The Dark Knight Rises. He's just teleporting places. Like,
so funny.
it's just utterly ridiculous. But he has a whole vision quest. I love his whole teaching, the whole thing about how do you beat an opponent who's got more heart. You got to be heartless. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, he's a great, what a teacher. What a teacher. I
I
love
also love
that
the
stuff.
fact he's just got this
Mhm.
master, the Master Kim, who
Mhm.
is 100 plus years old, and he's just the most like,
Yeah.
it's like, I can't die until you're good enough. I'm like, I love it.
Mhm.
It's crap. The Dagobah
Yeah.
cave, and he's just fighting Johnny. I was like,
Mhm.
this is brilliant. Because I said to you, I was just looking for the thumbnails. I'm like, why is episode two got Kreese in a cave with a lat?
Yeah.
I was like, I was like,
If
what
I
is
was
going on
Crease,
here?
right? Obviously, it's got. He must be in his 70s now. He must just be like, what am I doing? Why am I doing
Mate,
this? Like, what?
he's
He
loving
clearly has got
it.
some
What's
weird,
his
weird
Martin
Freudian
Cove?
relationship with
Yeah,
Johnny.
he absolutely. So he was born in 1947, so he's getting close to
Mm.
80.
Oh my god. He's in his late 70s doing this shit.
He loves
I
it,
really want
man.
to.
He
Yeah, he
genuinely
really does.
loves it.
He loves it. But yeah, I mean, look, I of course the ending, the big final episode thing is that Tori's mother dies, and then she
Mate,
has to go and sort of compete against
no, 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 no.
Sam to
I
try
want
and
to, I
get
want to talk.
that
I want to
captain
talk about
spot.
the mother's death scene because I thought it was just
Mm,
gonna be so. She comes home and she's cooking
mhm,
because early in the episode her mum's drugs get reduced and that's good because that means things are progressing and doing well.
mhm,
And she has a wee moment and she's like, Kreese comes to her in a parking lot and she's like, you know what, I'm happy now. My mum's getting better. I'm in Miyagi
mhm,
Do. Everything's good. And then she goes home,
yeah.
still's cooking. You turn a corner and it's not even the back of her head. Her mum just eyes open is staring on the ground, and I'm like,
Mhm.
what the crap? This is like, I was like, this is a, I was like, I didn't expect this to be that level of, yep, she's dead, and then you guys
Mhm.
get Tori in this emotional rut, and then when they're competing for the team leaders, so the male and
Captaincy,
female
yeah.
leaders, where there's a wee bit of tension between Miguel and Robbie because Miguel doesn't he got the third from Stanford and Robbie's
Mhm.
like, I'm not just gonna give this to you and
Yeah.
they have a pretty close fight, but Robbie comes out on top and like I just love
Yeah,
Johnny's like yeah.
I'm glad Robbie comes out on top because he's always been kind of shunned and never gets first place. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
good for you, Robbie. And
what
I
I
was like,
liked
shut up, Miguel.
what
Yeah.
I liked at the start of that is that Johnny gives them both the exact same pet top because they're
Mhm.
both like his obviously
Yeah, his
Robbie
son.
is his biological son and he's having a child with Miguel's mother and he
Mhm.
is like a kind of a
Yeah.
surrogate father to Miguel. So I just love how he just gives us the exact same pep talk to both of them and he's like it's like either way I win, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and Tori comes on to fight Samantha and Amanda, so the mother clearly gets a phone call from the hospital, gets informed of it, and she's like, "We need to stop
Mhm.
the fight," because Tori is going a wee bit aggressive towards Sam,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Crybaby Danny runs on and is like, "We need to stop it," and Johnny
Cry
goes,
baby
you
Dan.
know, and Johnny goes for a good moment later on. He's like, the best way to fight grief, he's like, the one thing I want to do is just get on the mat and go for it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and yeah, and then
Well,
Tori vanishes.
Johnny kind of ends up being right though because they lose Tori because of it.
I
You
mean,
know,
yeah, and you go, "Where's
to Cobra
Tori?"
Kai.
And well, that's
Yeah.
that's where it ends up, and you get the when they come to Barcelona. Like I said, I thought it was gonna be really funny. I thought Netflix was gonna be like, right, budgets are getting sliced the last season because they're announcing the thing.
Yeah.
I was like, is this gonna be in LA? Is this gonna be down the street?
Yeah.
And then
I thought they were going to do it as a
and then
joke.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's actually in Los Angeles. I was like in Barcelona. So I was like, oh, right, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, is
Yeah.
is it actually in Barcelona? Like that's it's a
Probably
set.
not. No, it's definitely not in Barcelona.
And they go there, and then the Cobra Kai kids walk, and then it's Kreese and his psychic, and I'm just like, that's a convicted felon, guys.
No.
Simply arrested. And then the most dramatic music ever. Just there's a
Mm.
space, and Tori walks up, and I was pissing myself. I was like, this is the funniest shit ever. It
Yeah.
was so dramatic, and it was
Yeah.
like, and then Kreese goes, let the games begin,
What an ending. What an ending.
and then,
But
like I
this has
said to
got
you,
me conflicted.
if they don't address the fact arrest this man, he's like technically his crimes in the United States, so we have no beef with him here in Spain. Like
Maybe
if they
maybe
do
that's it.
a Pulaski meme out of it, I'll hand them an Emmy
Well,
myself.
I would be surprised if they did something like that. But I do have to. I was confused because it is three parts they're splitting this into. This
Yeah.
goes all the way into March next year, which is still some time away. And I kind of have no idea where this is going to go because I thought the Sekai Taikai would be the end of the show, but we're
Lewis,
just into it five
it's
episodes
always
in.
bigger. There's always something
So,
bigger. As
so I
as a
actually, because obviously they're going to have to end the Sekai Taikai after this next 5 episode slot. But it's like, what do we go to for the final third? Like, I don't know how this is gonna.
Chosen's coming back from Japan with some absolute
Yeah.
silver bullet to use.
Mhm.
As Qui Gon Jinn once said, "There's always a bigger fish. There's always a bigger Kai
Yeah.
tournament. You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna get
And
even bigger."
your theory was they go back in time and get Mr.
Well,
Miyagi,
what I
and
said was I was
a
messaging.
young Mr. Miyagi, bring him
I
into the
was like,
present day.
I was like, here, if this show, I will be less mad if this show does time travel than I was with Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah.
Because it's just, this show is is more ridiculous. I just would be like, yep, I would
Yeah.
just genuinely, if they did time
I would
travel,
believe it.
I would not be annoyed. I would,
Mhm.
I would be like, this makes sense. This is on the
Mhm.
track Cobra Kai.
Well, thinking about it, I actually believe. I actually don't think I think Miyagi-Do won't win the Sekai Taikai.
No, I don't think they
And then
will.
I think there's going to be like a time jump, maybe like a year or maybe even 2 years when they're in college or doing whatever else, and they have to get the band back together
I,
and go back into the
yeah,
Sekai Taikai again or whatever. That's
I
sort of
feel
what
part
I think.
two is going to be the Infinity War, and then part three is gonna be the end game where they genuinely do go like it's been a bit of time. Like you say, there's been a
Yeah.
time jump, and they go around recruiting everybody, and then Danny's like, "Here, guys, actually, in this other chest of Mr. Miyagi's, there was this time dial, that we can use to go back."
They have to
And
go back into the Sekai Taikai and do it
well, they
again.
go
Yeah.
back to Mr. Miyagi,
Yeah. Right.
and then Mr. Miyagi hates Daniel for being a little bitch, and then turns out Daniel's the one that got beaten up in the newspaper, all those years ago. And because
Oh,
Mr.
that's
Miyagi's
good.
like, Daniel's son, stop being a wee
Yeah.
bitch,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
knocks
yeah.
him one.
And does that.
Um, and then they're gonna learn a super new move called boxing because it turns out Mr. Miyagi has like a thing in a
Yeah,
boxing,
boxing.
and then and then which is just ridiculous, and I love it. And then they come back to the future, and then it's
Yeah.
like, we need to then go back to the Sentai Kankai, or they break Kreese, or they break Terry out of prison, and
Mhm.
it's like, right,
Yeah.
we have to, we have the way we can defeat Kreese is with a bigger baddie. We'll go
Yeah.
and get Kreese. Also,
I
I
would
love
just
how Mike Barnes shows up for like an episode, and then he just does a ref
my
and then has a
boss.
fight with Johnny,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, that was so good, thanks," and he leaves. He's like, "I
Yeah.
needed that." I just loved
Yeah.
it. I was like, he's like, "Yes." He's like, when Terry burned down my building, and I was like, "Oh my god, I forgot that happened." And then
Yeah,
it's
yeah, in
just
the last
like,
season, yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, I just needed a fight with Johnny to get my stress
All
out."
the crimes committed for the sake of a karate competition in the valley. It's actually insane what these
It's
people are
so
doing. These
insane.
men are doing.
I just,
But yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe when it gets announced that Cobra Kai win, they just hawk and starts to vanish. Then we cut back to the house in LA, and all the LaRusso son has vanished, and
yeah.
Kenny starts to vanish and turn to dust.
I would see if they actually turned it and said this has been the set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe this entire time,
Yeah.
and it is the
Yeah.
like, once again, do you know what? It's the thing, right? Is Cobra Kai could do no wrong in my eyes. Genuinely, they
Yeah.
can't do anything.
Yeah,
And
it's such a weird position for a show to be in. Unless I don't know they do something really dumb at the end. Like I feel like they can literally do anything, and I'm on board for it because it's so
yeah,
ridiculous.
and I'll be
Uh-huh.
like, oh, fantastic, and then I'll be like,
Mhm.
oh, the Karate Kid film, and like
Mhm.
if I 100%, I was about to say, until I forgot that Jackie Chan was Chinese, not Japanese. I thought Chosen was going to come back with Jackie Chan. from
Oh right.
Okinawa. There's
Yeah.
still a possibility he could be like, "Oh, I went to Okinawa. How was it? Yeah, good." But then I actually stopped up in Beijing, and I was like, "Oh, I found this
Yeah.
guy," and it's Jackie Chan. And
Yeah.
if it does end up with a fight between Jackie Chan and Kreese, I think that would be like I will be standing up applauding in my room. Um, and it's just the thing is like we always talked about it, it's like I don't know how they can top everything they've done. Like they
No.
did the karate school shooting scene, they did the home invasion scene. You know, there was a full
Yes.
katana
People have
fight at the
almost
end of
died
last
many
season.
times.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then
It's
I
like
was
all
just
these
like,
crimes, all these attempted murders,
uh-huh.
break-ins, fires, prison breaks, everything, and no one seems to face the consequences of these actions
Uh-huh.
ever.
And then it's just the fact that Kreese escaped, and they went, "Is he dangerous?" I mean, he did a lot of bad stuff during Vietnam, which, by the way, we had an entire
Yeah,
flashback sequence in season 3 because why
yeah.
not? Which is it's just purely there to like hype up Terry Silver, which I just was loving. Um, and his son, because it's Martin Cove's son that plays the younger version of himself, as it comes back for a wee scene. And yeah, man, I'm just like I can't see anything they do not making me
I
smile
know.
because
I will say this, right, because we say that. I mean, but I think it is actually a testament to. I think they're very consistent with their character writing. I don't think anyone does anything in the show where you're like, wait, that doesn't really make sense, or
mhm.
that wouldn't be them, or
Yeah, like say
anything like that kind
consistency
of
to
jumps the
Daniel.
shark. Like
He's
it's completely and utterly stupid and ridiculous and melodramatic,
yeah.
but it's still very consistent with what it's always been, and I think that's where its
You
success
know,
comes from. And it's
I'm
very
gonna
funny,
stand
very
I'm gonna
funny.
stand by it and say that
Hmm.
out of in the last however many years, this is the best
Yeah.
legacy sequel thing out there. No doubt, no. See, I'm standing by this, mate. Star Wars sequel
Top Gun
trilogy.
Maverick, no, not
No,
Top Gun Maverick. Not Top
Top
Gun
Gun Maverick, right? Okay, fair enough. That may be a contender for the sequel trilogy. But
Yeah.
Top Gun did not have somebody karate kicking somebody off the balcony of a school. That's all I'm saying. But like, like, you know, like
Yeah, yeah.
it's all that stuff. You know, when you look at stuff like Picard or something like that, where he's like, "Ah, that was
Oh
all
yeah,
right."
yeah.
Like
That was okay. That was alright, yeah.
the fact that this was like 3 movies in the 80s that people were like, "These are good. These were fun." Like
Yeah.
review wise, people are like the first one's the best. The other two are not as good as the first one.
Mhm.
I mean, I have a
Yeah.
love for them, and I just 'cause I grew up on them, and I for some reason just really liked them.
Mhm.
But like, they're not huge, and the fact of how big it's become off of three
Yeah. Yeah. That's
films
I
from the
do you
eighties.
I mean so much so that the Karate Kid reboot is coming out next May, 2 months after the show
Six
ends. Hint
seasons in a
hint, I wonder
movie.
what's six
Uh,
seasons of a movie is
and
literally
I
happening.
just and I and I
Look,
I, I want to know so much
I
why.
sorry, oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna score this yet because I need to wait
No,
for
yeah, no, you
how this
can't.
show is gonna kind of how this season's
Um,
gonna carry on in November.
Obviously
I'll wait till
it's
November for part two.
ah mate.
But
Honestly, it's still a 10 out of 10 in my eyes, but it is hard that you can, you know,
yeah,
it's gonna be like a march until we actually view this. But the fact is, this
I
show's
know
just got a
properly.
weird love nest
Yeah,
in our hearts that we can't not
yeah.
talk about it.
I know.
It's just
I
the
do
most
think I do
ridiculous
think people
thing.
should check out because it's just so silly. It's so fun to watch. It is a show that really does put a smile on your face. And that's kind of the biggest compliment I can really give to something like Cobra Kai. But anyway, let's wrap things up there, Kyle.
Yep.
So thank you very much for joining me today.
No worries. No worries.
Yes, we'll be back very soon, probably in a day or two, because we are going to be reviewing potentially Trap.
We
We
don't
think it's
know.
Trap.
Maybe depending on what
Uh,
it is.
we think it's Trap. And even if not, we'll be back with a review for Batman Cape Crusader, the new
Yep.
Batman animated series on Prime Video. But yes, we just gave our opinions on Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 1 and House of the Dragon Season 2. But at the end of the day, those were our unwanted opinions. Thank